Notice is hereby given of a workshop of the Board of Directors of the District to be held at 105 Port Road, Port Isabel, Texas, on the 7th day of August 2018, at the hour of 12 p.m. for consideration of the business of the agenda below. This notice is posted in the office of the district on August 3rd, 2018, at 2 p.m. in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551-041-551-050. We do have the presence of a quorum. Missing at this time, we have Board Member D. Wells and Board Member R. Wells. We may please have everyone stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, please bless this food that we're receiving for lunch, and thank you for having this day, and just help us to talk about the budget and find that path to right balance in our numbers. Say these things in Jesus Christ's name.
Amen. I'd like to thank everyone. Thank you all for being here this afternoon as a working lunch as we progress. Budgets certainly are always fun. They are a want list, a wish list, and a reality list. So, from there we shall begin. And thank you for everyone putting in the time and effort to get us to this point.
Yes, and thank you, Board, also for providing your assistance in the committee that we had prior, and then for this workshop. And right now, I just like to say that the staff had a lot of input, and I want to thank them too, because it takes a lot of effort into applying all the numbers together. And Eddie, thank you also. Robert, Charles. So right now, our main focus is going to be on the general fund, which is account 01, and that's the actual budget that we normally look at and account for all that's needed, all the needs of the district. And I would like to have Eddie go ahead and start the presentation.
So the way that we budgeted, the process that we used this year, basically took the budget that the department had last year, and taking out their utilities, taking out their leases, contractual obligations, one-time purchases, and allowing them to allocate the remaining funds. Were given to them as a target that they were allowed to allocate wherever they felt they needed within their budget, and the one-time purchases had to be justified with documentation, quotes, written explanation of what they needed, why they needed it, and that was presented to the general manager and myself and the department head. We discussed these things that they were asking for, and we gave them a preliminary yes or no. And then those things were brought to the budget committee. I added in all the personnel costs, those leases and utilities and all those things, and those one-time costs. All that was brought to the budget committee. Budget committee discussed all those things that we had preliminarily given approval for, and we discussed those needs together in the budget committee. And now this is the result of that process. So as we go through this, you can. There's a lot of assumptions that have to be made, and some of these things are still in discussion. For example, if we go to the first page and we look at our revenues, the revenues that I'm projecting are based on the recommendations from Dan Jackson, from our rate study, and he gave us two options. In order to complete this, I had to choose one option, so I chose scenario number one, which I know hasn't been approved by the board, but these rates are based, the water services and wastewater services are based on scenario one revenues from Dan Jackson's report. also the raw water. I know that's something that is still also in discussions. My projection is based on keeping it at 80 cents the way that it is right now.
Now, why would you do that? You
I
projected a
had to
higher
choose,
revenue
yeah.
one way and the lower the other.
I had to choose either, is it going to go up, is it going to go down, or is it going to stay the same? So I just chose a number,
What I'm saying is that they both were scheduled to go up according to Dan Jackson. Why did you do that here?
I'm not sure, it was just a guess based on the discussions, my feedback. I can,
Well-
that's, all of these numbers are subject to change.
Yes,
I mean,
and
you
then,
guys are
well-
gonna give me direction, and if any of my assumptions are incorrect, this is a living document, so it's gonna change. This doesn't mean that it's gonna go, be adopted exactly the way it is. So,
And
I
one,
wanted to clarify those assumptions so that if there is something that I assumed that wasn't correct, you guys can tell me and I'll
Yes.
fix that.
right. And we came to discussing that, and we just projected the raw water is the one that was the minimal of all the concerns, which is from 80 to $1. And the board hadn't made a decision on that one, so we just came in and said, okay, let's take what's available now, and make that assumption and propose that budget. So that's why we have that. But like Eddie says.
Conservative.
Very conservative. But what Eddie, just like he mentioned, that whatever the board decides, if y'all plan to make those changes and rates increases, the sooner that we can do it, the better. And that way we can make a better assumption, but right now, we just don't have all the information available because of that. So we leave it up to the board. If y'all want to change that now, we can do it and add that to it or take away from it,
And
whatever.
I anticipate that there would be changes coming out of this workshop.
Correct.
And that's why I
Correct.
scheduled another workshop before the next meeting. So whatever changes I need to make, I can incorporate those, and we can see a final product at the next.
Right, but we don't anticipate having another workshop. It's just changing now, if there's changes, and just make the changes and just move forward on it until the board approves it. I think we do have board approval. What's the date on that one for the budget? Isn't it for the 22nd?
The August 22nd?
22nd?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
So-
mhm.
Right, so it's not gonna be approved like tomorrow's board meeting. It'll be 2 weeks from then, because of that reason, that if we make changes, we'll bring it for approval on the 22nd with any changes.
What's the bulk water sales? Bulk water sales.
Bulk water sales.
Is, I'm thinking that the bulk water would be on tap, like, they have construction going on one site, and they request a temporary meter. Maybe, Mini, are you here?
Right here.
Do you know what bulk water sales are?
Yes.
That's what it would go in under.
Like
Yeah.
construction
Temporary.
projects and stuff like that, when they put a meter on a hydrant. or
The fire
something.
There
hydrants,
you
yes,
go,
sir.
yeah, and that's what normally new developments, or where there's road constructions, they request one of those temporary meters for construction, and they'll, that's what it comes back to. Bulk
And
water.
Just to be clear, are we having another workshop prior to approval or not?
We don't have to. Mm-mm. I
Yes,
really,
if we have changes, then we would have one before the next meeting,
I
which would.
I would anticipate if we're going to make changes, you have to approve it before the regular
Yes,
schedule.
that was my plan. Just any changes that are.
And the reason I'm asking is because you said yes and you said no.
yeah, that was really,
I just want to be clear whether we are going to
Well,
have one or not.
my reason for that is because it's gonna take all your time, and just for minor changes, we can see it at the board meeting. Once you get the packet, you'll see the changes, and then you all approve it. If, I mean, all the changes are gonna be there. But that's the reason I don't anticipate on having another one. It takes everybody's time, and we've already discussed it quite a bit. And he did mention that, but it's up to the board too. You know, if y'all want another workshop,
Personal opinion,
it's,
it's pretty cut and paste.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
if
all we do.
But I mean,
That's
we
all we
make
do,
the-
right.
Yeah, if we make the changes, then obviously those changes will be in there.
Correct.
And it wouldn't require much time for,
No,
For
just,
approval.
right.
I anticipated, especially with, when we talk about fund, the three capital projects, that we would need some more discussion than just a amount of an agenda item. So, the amount that I have for capital projects is still liable to be changed. Those amounts could still be revised.
is that the money that we originally showed in excess?
No,
No.
no, sir. That's the monies that are existing right now on bonds
Okay.
and revenue that's coming in, you know, it's normal stuff that we already discussed.
Let me ask a question. You show a pretty good increase in the tap fees for the water meter. And a slight decrease in the sewer. So explain to me how that works.
Okay, the reason, we've been having a lot of water taps lately. That's why right now, we're way over on our actuals for the current year.
Don't they have to get a sewer tap also every time you get a water pipe?
No, because of the irrigation meters. So an irrigation meter would require a water tap, but not a sewer tap.
So that many more?
Yeah, well, right now, we're working on the Marriott. They have like 4 or 5 units going in and just one sewer tap.
This week, we already got 1, 2, 3, about five new water taps.
Are we still on the revenue page?
Yes.
I got a question on the tank fee, the tank rental fee, is that for our towers or water towers? And that's for all of them? That's,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And on the, right up about a third of the page down, it says revenue and interest on CD Green Bank Cooper. Is that right? It shows 0.
Revenue, interest, CD Green Bank, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes, so those are our CDs that,
Just shows 0, that's,
That one's probably.
yeah, they mature, and sometimes we don't,
so it's still in there.
yeah, we invest them, so when one CD matures, we reinvest it again, and then if we have 2 separate ones at the same time with the same bank, instead of lumping them into the same line item, we would separate them.
So that's a mature CD, we just haven't used it, basically.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Explain to me, please, the fund balance carry forwards.
Okay, that was something that our prior finance director was using those line items to show that we had money that was accumulating in the sewer, their water system development charges and sewer system development charges. Those are fees that we charge for new taps.
New taps,
Right?
All new water and sewer taps.
And so, that's, my understanding is those system development charges were meant to be accumulated over time and were able to be used for a particular project after they accumulate. So what these line items signify are money that was being carried forward, that was available to be used if you wanted to use those funds. I'm not counting on that. Those balances right now are around $60,000 combined, so they're not significant enough to use it for a project at this time. So yesterday you received an addendum, which was a budget comparison between the current year budget and the proposed budget. Prior to that, you had received just a line item for the proposed budget. The only differences between those two were the transfer to capital projects. So if you look at the administration department, Department 7, on the addendum that you have, at the bottom you'll see expense transfer to capital, and that's what that amount is. The amount that I was projecting, the revenues over expenditures, that amount is now projected to be transferred to capital projects. The reason this is necessary is because in the past, we have transferred a portion of our revenue based on a percentage, and that percentage has been carried forward a few years. It was something that was decided back in 2015, and it was a 75% of the difference between the old rates and the new rates. So that that difference was a 40% increase in the rates. So it was 75% of the 40% increase was allocated to capital projects. So that was that amount, whatever that amount worked out to be, based on the monthly revenue, was being transferred to capital projects, and it was available for whatever projects that we designated. Now, the biggest difference is I don't want to do that. I want to transfer money for capital projects based on what projects we need, and I want to transfer money that's for a specific project, not just an arbitrary amount that is going to be transferred over there. I want to run a tighter ship that way, and just allocate the money that's needed for the project.
Would it make sense just to use the monies towards the current budget, the 27, say for instance, the 2017, 2018 budget, whatever capital projects were at that time for that period? Is that what you're saying, or?
So you mean to, based on whatever projects were carried forward?
Yeah, in other words, not for any new, to start any new projects, but just to finish up what we have on the books.
Well,
Is that what you're wanting to do, or?
no. So through this budgeting process, I got together for the capital projects fund. I got together with Charles, and he got together with his managers as far as what projects we needed to accomplish in the coming year, and you know, he justified those with the documentation that I had asked for. We discussed it together with Robert and Carlos, and talked about what projects we felt that we needed to fund for the coming year. And so those are in the capital projects fund. And so in the capital projects fund, we have projects that are being carried forward, like you said, projects that were begun in this year, and our work is going to continue into the next year. And then we also have other projects that we feel should be done in the next year. You know, of course, that is up for discussion. Anything that you guys feel that, you know, projects that we shouldn't be undertaking or that we should.
Do we have,
we
or do
can
you have
discuss
a
those.
number as to what's being carried over from last year?
That, as far as funds or?
Yeah, funds,
Yeah,
available funds.
as far as funds, well, right now, we have a difference between what Charles thinks that we're going to have carried over into the coming year and what I think that we're going to have coming into the coming year. So that is still yet to be determined. We're going to try to get together, reconcile his numbers and mine, so we can come to an agreement as far as how much money we think is going to be available next year to cover the ongoing projects, and that's the difference. If you look at your original printout that you had, that includes the Fund 3 capital projects.
What page are you talking about?
So if you go forward to Fund 3, so it'll have, well, it says capital project page 1 at the top. So I don't have these individually numbered as a.
Yeah, if you just jump up to the 03 column, it's, you know, you kind of have to put the third column on page 1.
It's,
So if you
it
flip
looks
through,
like this right here. It's in the back side.
so it'll say, at the top of the page, it'll have on the left-hand side, capital project.
Yeah,
And on the right-hand side, it'll say page 1 at the top.
like the fourth page from the back, from the end.
Yeah, it'll be close to the gray divider that you have.
It's the fourth page from the back, from the end of the report.
Find it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Is it in the use information or the old information?
It's the old
Oh, it's in the
information.
old, maybe I get it.
Yes.
I was looking, I thought you had.
I was looking for the-
Because I have an old one on that one already. Yeah, go back some more.
No.
Let me have it.
Yeah.
So these are the two projects we're seeking or funds
Yes,
for.
these are the two projects that I'm assuming that we're going to get the funding for those. So the 2018A is the meters project, and the 2018 Texas Water Development Board loan is the $5 million for the sewer system upgrades and lift station upgrades.
And that's 18 lift stations and one sludge
Right, one's, the sludge drying, or sludge
sludge-
holding tank.
holding tank. Okay.
And then as you flip over to the next page, so on that page you would have a transfer in from the capital, from the general fund, right? On the next page, you have different projects that are ongoing. So the Department 31 is finishing up that project from the 2012 bond issuance. And then if you look at Department 34, water infrastructure, this is really projects that that are currently being funded by these revenue transfers from the general fund. So this Department 34 water infrastructure and Department 35 sewer infrastructure, these are the ones that are being funded by those revenue
So this is
transfers.
basically, those following pages is a breakdown of these two projects. Yeah.
Yes.
And so.
Well, no, those two projects, so the 2018s are back here at the end, the Department 39 and 40.
So on this water infrastructure, number 34, this sludge drying basin, that's not the same sludge drying basin we're considering over here?
Yeah, should be changed to sludge lagoon. It's the water plant 2 sludge.
Oh, okay.
And-
Yeah.
and
Different,
that's-
different projects.
So the holding tank is what's being covered by the 2018 Texas Water Development Board loan, right? And the lagoon is, yeah. So they're two different things. The holding tank is a sewer system project. The sludge lagoon is a water project.
Right. I don't know if we're gonna add the fund balance carry forward, because right now we have the 2 loan proceeds in our revenue, but we're not showing the balances that are gonna carry forward from each bond. So that's probably a revision we need to put into this fund, to this revenue. Book.
That's a reconciliation that you're talking about.
That's the reconciliation that we need to make between Charles's numbers and mine. So these are some of the projects that we want to fund during the coming year. Department 34, water
The,
infrastructure.
Let me ask you,
And,
on this, on that elevated storage tank, what is that for?
Well, that's just rehab for our ground storage tank and elevator storage tanks. Basically, we.
Is that the one we went and looked at?
No, the one we looked at was Water Plant 1, Clearwell. Like the
Okay.
7121, that's the one we looked at.
Okay.
This one, we basically got the annual reports here pretty recently, and there was a lot of rehab that was, rusted ladders, spot repairs on our various steel tanks.
Oh,
And so this is just, kind of just the tip of the iceberg of what's needed in the recommended improvements. But
Now,
give us
is that,
something to work with.
is that for this particular tank then that we're talking about?
I think it's gonna be more in general, just kind of a preventive maintenance, or what we can do in-house.
But not necessarily for this one?
No,
For all of them.
Okay.
It's
The reason I
ground
ask is because we're also considering building a different one, so
Oh, well,
I'm concerned about putting in money towards something we're gonna tear down in a few years or a year or two or whatever.
Yeah, here probably need one more round of rehab, give it 10 more years, but that's kind of the general idea of
Okay.
probably what we're gonna have to do.
Okay. And that's what I was trying to put in my mind when we anticipate doing the next tower.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if it'll survive through 2028 just to meet our debt schedule.
Okay.
Yeah. Although we do anticipate in tearing this down, that for now, we have to keep up with it, otherwise TCEQ will write us up.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure somebody will.
TCEQ.
Can we go back to administration, please?
Absolutely.
It's 07, page 6.
Yep.
Why is there no 300,000 for the unfunded pension like there was this year? I thought we were trying to get caught up.
There it is.
So normally
64.
our
Oh, I see, current budget is, you mean we didn't make any of this year?
No,
no.
there wasn't anything
No, we
budgeted
just,
for it.
So
we just started, we're just
Okay.
starting, yes.
I got it, okay.
Normally, the amount that we pay on our payroll, based on the rate that the TCDRS gives us,
Okay.
they tell us what rate to pay. That amount is being accounted for in the 6417, which is retirement. And that's being accumulated every time there's a payroll. In here, I have the 300,000 that you had said that you wanted to make a one-time payment towards that, and that's what's being funded in the 6420 unfunded pension. So that is in the proposed budget.
That's a good question. We've been discussing that. They were actually talking about it at the TCDRS conference that we had, that a lot of companies are going out and putting a whole bunch of money towards that pension to catch up, and a lot of other companies are doing that now, so. Okay. Any other questions on the revenue side, on page 1?
Yeah, before we leave.
Okay. Before we switch over to another account?
My personal belief is that revenues ought to depict our current policy as far as what we're collecting at what rate we're collecting.
Which they are, aren't they?
No, because he's put in the water service, he's gone ahead and put that increase in there. General public, if they pick up this report, they're gonna look, well, you're only short $28,000, you know, don't buy a pickup and you don't need to raise our rates. It's not clear what is the actual. Personally, I think the water revenues ought to reflect the current rate. Show the shortage, show the deficit. Then you're going to come up with a substantially higher deficit number at the end, and then that's the number we go to the public and say, we got to make that up.
I see what you mean, but I know that, as we've seen this past year, the 50 new taps, and that's what this is accounting for. The
Now, he
new
just
taps
said
coming
he
in.
accounted for the new rates according to Dan Jackson.
Correct, and that's what it is on the rates that we had by Dan Jackson. He included the 50 taps that we've seen.
I don't mind you increasing the number of taps. Of course, we're going to have some more taps
Right.
and more usage, but what I'm saying is, I think the rate, the water rate, the sewer rate itself ought to reflect current.
We haven't even enacted the new rate.
We haven't enacted the new one yet. And I don't think, and like I had expressed to you before, I think it's better to show, okay, this is a deficit we've got to work with. We're either going to take it out of reserves or we got to raise the public's rates. And the way it is right here, it's a mixed message you send because you raised some of the rates and you left the other rates alone. And I don't think it serves us to promote the message that we are being as frugal and as conservative as we can with your money, whether it be tax money or rate money or whatever's coming in. But you know, here's the black and white of it. If we don't have an increase, this is a deficit at the end of the year. We're going to have to pull it out of reserves. And our reserves are primarily there in response to good management practices telling us that we ought to have 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, you know, socked away. I mean, that's just my feeling.
Right, and one of the things that we usually anticipate is we don't have an accurate number at the end. If we usually say like, okay, this is what it is, 10 million, we're not gonna have an accurate number towards the end. And the other thing is, a few years back, we experienced exactly that. One of the board members had mentioned, no, we gotta lower the budget because of this and this. Well, we ended up with a surplus of pretty close to 500,000 because of that board member. He said, no, you gotta, and that'll be good for the audit, and the auditor said, no, that's not a good practice. You put what you anticipate on what you see, the outlook, and we ended up having a surplus that year, and which was against the auditors, so.
Well,
But-
I mean, you're supposed to project.
Project,
But it's
correct.
always a good thing to have more money in the bank than less money. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't give a true picture of what things are. You've given a picture of what things could be.
Right, that's all we can do.
And I don't
What
mind.
could be,
What could be, but what could be is if, you know, we come into agreement on a rate increase. Now, as far as the number of meters, we're gonna have an increased number of meters, that's fine, project that all you want. But, and we can always amend the budget 6 months in after we change the rates. I would rather do that. Because right now, this is hard for me to sell. Someone's gonna come in and pick this up and say, you're only short $28,000. You don't need a rate increase.
I can understand. My goal in this was trying to give you there's a lot of variables that go into this that I have to try to account for, and so there's assumptions that I have to make. My goal is to try to give you a product that was as close to complete, as possible, takes into account all the different things that we're trying to accomplish, and something that shows the different, scenarios. This is one possible plan, it's not necessarily the final plan or
No,
the...
we have to give you
yeah.
direction that you can,
Exactly. So if you want to see a budget that shows without a rate increase,
I mean, that's just my feeling, I don't know about my peers.
Well, my thought on it is, that is a different way to get to the same end. And either way, we wind up at the same end. As Eddie said, we can present whatever we want, and it's up to us to determine whether we want to show a significant loss, creating, as you say, a demand or a need, or we can take into consideration, something we've already acted on, is to get a rate study done and anticipate that money. There's two ways to do it.
No, exactly.
It's the same end result.
The end result, and I agree with you. The only thing that might change is when those new rates are adopted,
Yeah.
3 months in, 6 months in, 9 months in. But if we're going to go ahead and account for the new rates, now we need to also account for raising that raw water rate up to $1.04.
Well,
It has to be
Sounds good,
consistent,
yes.
all or the,
I do agree with that.
That part's
Yeah, I do agree with that. And having said that, though, that means we're going to act on the recommendations.
If you put
and-
that $1.04 on there now, we'll have a standing room only.
And so I think this is the hard part about putting something like this together is there's different paths you can take to accomplish what we want, but in the end, if it's a question of whether we can sell this to the public or not, then we've already missed that opportunity, because there was lots of opportunities to do that prior to us going this far. Such as public discussions about what we're doing and our goals of trying to implement new meters and all this stuff. There's lots of ways you can do that, not just with a budget. That's my point in saying that. Showing a significant loss is one way to accomplish that, but that's not the only way to accomplish that. And at this late in the game, that you might be right. That might be the only way to do it, if that's what we want to project. I don't feel totally comfortable projecting a significant loss, only because I know better and I anticipate better and I'm working towards the better. I actually have a plan that I can go and sell and tell people that we're going to do this, but we haven't done it. We haven't implemented the rates. And so that's what makes this a little bit more difficult.
And it's like Mr. Salazar said, there are a lot of variables that come into play, and some of them that we took I'm sure he took into consideration was the board's already approval for the $300,000 payment to the unfunded liability, the approval of the Texas Water Development Board loan, and the approval for the meters. So in anticipation of those, we needed to show that rate increase, and that's why he went that way, because we did discuss it quite a bit between us. And we said, well, just go with with Dan Jackson's rate or proposal one, in anticipation of the board approving this.
And that was one of the questions I had for Eddie was if these numbers represented what the meter savings potentially could bring. And he shows a more conservative figure, but it does, and so that's something that, I think part of it is just, the fact that we either have to decide to follow through with what we say we're going to do or what we are planning to do and as part of our plans, which makes it easy for everybody. But still, nonetheless, these numbers, I think, are going to change because we don't know. We don't know what kind of savings we're going to capture.
Exactly. There are a couple
That's going to
other
be the hard part
factors.
for the director is is how do I capture those savings and live up to what I printed out for you guys? You know, that's,
Well, it's a guesstimate.
right, it's a
Yeah,
guesstimate.
yeah.
And another thing that we took into consideration are the needs. As we go through this, towards the end, the capital outlay purchases that we need, the needs of the district are included in that figure. Everything's increasing, as you all saw, the chemical bids are way higher than we anticipated. What other bids were we seeing that were higher, chemicals and, do you recall?
Well, there's a couple other factors also that we have to look at, and one of them is that the current budget or the current revenue that we're receiving is not what we had anticipated. It's lower than it was last year, one, and now we're going into a conservation effort because we've already received notice from TCQ about the water being down at the reservoir by 48%, which means we're now into a conservation process, yeah. Right. So we're having to notify the public, which means we're not going to get the generates even with the current money that we were anticipating. And we're hoping now with the rate increase, we'll at least get some.
And what we've seen in the past with that voluntary conservation that we send out, it does work, because we've seen it before where you send the notices and people do conserve, and
Meaning consumption.
even though we're losing revenue, but it does work.
Yes.
I've seen that in the past.
So we're now below 50% of capacity at our reservoirs, and we are going to send notices to people to start conserving water.
Correct.
I don't know how long it's going to be that way, but I anticipate our revenues are
10%
going to
in
be.
conservation, that's a huge number on your budget also.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm being conservative with our numbers.
Well, I just
Not
ask that we
accounting.
come into agreement. Let's either be consistent, let's go ahead and plug all the rate increases
Very
in
valid.
now.
Okay. let's do
Yeah, I
it.
do agree with that, that
And
if we're gonna do that, then just raise it up to, like you said, the dollar for we're anticipating to do.
perfect.
Now, the
Okay.
people are gonna scream because we told them we were gonna wait until after we got the new meters in. You realize that?
Well,
The budget is different than,
Well, I know.
but if they're assuming it's coming, they'll put it in the budget, that's the real deal. There's so many ways you can look at this.
Are we ready to take action on both items at the next meeting, like the August 20-something meeting? Like
Right.
the rate increase and then the budget inclusion? Or,
And the what?
like the first option would be the
We're
rate increase?
we're still pending on the attorney's information that he's supposed to
I
bring in
think
to us.
we'll have some
We're gonna have
information,
to
so it
wait
might be either the next meeting or the
for
prior
the
one.
following.
Because it's hard to
Okay.
tell what
Right.
the attorney's gonna
But
bring.
we'll be consistent on this budget, we'll be consistent, like you're saying.
That was the reason for budgeting at the current rate, because we're waiting to see what happens with the meeting between the attorneys.
I'll forget that.
But we'll be consistent if you all requested that.
Yeah,
we'll
that
do
does make sense.
Consistency
I'm
on
okay
the,
with it.
thank you.
And you know, I really do realize the fine, I don't want to say it's a fine, but at the end of the year, people are going to say, well, you know, you missed it, Eddie.
Yeah.
So I realize you're doing your best with the information that you have available to you. I know that staff over here better be doing their best getting you the right information and no fudging those requests. Okay? But at the end,
It's a moving target.
yes.
Right,
So,
Yeah, yeah.
I understand.
Thank you.
thank you.
So, did you guys want to go department by department and discuss any
Any information that's in there?
one-time purchases
I would prefer, let's
or?
just go through it.
Okay.
Okay, good. So we're done with, no questions on, page number 1? Revenue? Okay. Thank you.
So in department number 1, the additions to this budget are basically one additional staff member and some one-time purchases for equipment, pumps and various equipment. So,
Okay, let me ask you this. The one additional staff member, who made the request and how did you justify it? All right, tell me. All right, you went into Eddie and you told him what?
I need another person. My plan is to turn on water plant one, and we need to have enough personnel to operate it. Otherwise, we're gonna have overtime, we're gonna have, less maintenance to be done.
Why were you going to turn that on? I thought we could pump out 5 million gallons.
We could pump out 8 million gallons over there.
Right.
It's just, we're putting too much pressure on the system, and we want to prolong the life of those membranes, right? So we're gonna reduce it if we keep pushing it. And at 6.5, which is what we've been the whole month, you're putting too much pressure, you're creating fouling on the membranes, your integrity tests could fail. This summer we've probably been maybe 5 fibers, and I'd like to reduce that number, even though it's nowhere near, any risk, but I'd like to reduce that number, and I'd like to alleviate some pressure from that water plant. One of the good things about water plant 1 is that we can pump directly to the island during heavy season. So what we've been doing is filling with water plant 2, but if we can turn it on, maintain that constant pressure and then operate through the night, it'll help us out a lot.
I was told the water out of water plant 1 is far inferior in quality.
That's correct. But, it's kind of, you weigh your options, and we have to do what we have to do. I mean, you can't consistently put pressure on that system. It's going to fail, something's going to give. We need to have a second option. If something happens to one of the racks, it's very likely to knock down all racks, and then you're not producing water any which way. So we need to have that second option. We need to have
It'll be down for a while.
But what I,
Oh yeah, we just recently, but it was on standby, one of our compressors, we're doing maintenance to it. Other compressor went out on.
Same time.
On the line, go out there and fix it. That's one of the things that, could happen. The compressors are the heart of the system. Your heart goes out, you're done. Same
Right.
thing for that water plant, with the compressors. So we need to have the backup plan to ensure that we're gonna be producing water.
and we have 2 things on that water treatment plant. There's, one of them is if you treat high demand, high demand on it, like 4 million gallons a day, it'll give you not so good of a quality water, but if you go on the lower, like 2 million or 1.5, it'll give you better quality water.
What's that?
Because it's at lower flow, it'll give it time to treat and settle and not carry over a lot of that flocculation that they, and then,
Those do come out a little bit better at lower flow. The
How-
only bad thing is that, the taste and odor is not gonna necessarily change, but it does get a little better. Nothing in comparison to water plant 2,
and the other thing that I see is that we do need some backup for that, because you have a pipeline that's leaking over there, that we need to isolate the water treatment, turn it off, and get that pipe fixed. It's a small leak, but it can get worse, and we're hoping that we can take care of it right after summer, because we don't want it to get worse. And what else do you see there that,
The reason, one of the things is that in the past, we've had, it takes 5 operators, a maintenance guy to operate one plant. We're nowhere near having that amount of personnel. One of the reasons why we requested that.
And if I'm not mistaken, we've lost some people here recently?
Oh yeah, since I've been here, we've lost, 20+ operators.
Yeah,
Just in
these
my
are new
time.
people he's asking for
Just
now.
recently, we lost one to military highway. They're paid,
How much is it gonna cost to bring water plant 1 up to water plant 2 standard?
How much is it gonna cost?
No.
Micro.
I think it was seawater plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In order to get it.
Why?
Because because that whole conventional system is not gonna get the way.
You can't use the
But
same
Michael-
microfiltration system at one as you
Oh,
have to.
well, yeah, I mean, you could, open a microfiltration system.
That's it.
Yeah, I think, how much was it, 9?
Like 7 million, 9 million,
For
yeah.
microfiltration, it could be done, right? So
Right.
the system is over there, but just in a smaller capacity,
Yeah.
it could be done.
I mean, between the microfiltration and clarifiers we've done at water plant 2 recently, we're at, what, 9-10 million in expense for what we got out there? So, you know, and then as far as our drought contingency, one of the guidelines for raising us to stage 2 is when our plants are operating above 46% of capacity. And with water plant 1 down, I mean, we're getting it close to that, you know, like to get it, or to get down.
We're not even close to getting under that amount.
Right, right.
We know what's gonna happen is once water plant number 1 is cranked on and run for a period of time, and the results, the end results are noticeable, and it gets out there that one plant is processing a whole lot nicer than one plant going to the island, there's gonna be a lot of people upset.
But it's gonna happen right away.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'll
you know,
notice.
for a long period of time, it's not right away.
Back to the old water quality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Porterville is gonna see it. And that's part of the reason why we waited so long to jump on it. But, you know, the longer we wait, you know, the more maintenance, the more money we're gonna have to put into that water plant in order to get it, you know, operating.
So I think in tune with that, we need to start coming up with a plan
Michael?
to upgrade that plant.
Right. And I mean, sort of my current approach is using the Proposition 2 authority that we have, but I mean, we need to, of course, send that letter to Attorney General and see if that's an option that we can consider or
Well,
stay.
So
I don't know.
that's a
We're still doing that,
motivation.
right?
Yeah.
You're still doing
He
that,
looked at
right?
me, I don't have to say that.
That's a motivation for continuing
So-
with that desalination
Right.
project.
But no, that's a good, I think that's a good plan, if we really get serious about doing something like that. And if the legislature will let us use those monies that way, I think that is very doable.
Problem is you're not creating a new water source, and that's kind of what it specifies, is a new water source.
Right,
It's
it-
real gray.
Yeah, it's a blend of
Right.
seawater. I mean, you're probably saving 10% on diversions of the river, which, you know, you kind of want to get that as much as you can.
But I guess my question is really, in regards to that, is, do we really have a good, because you had mentioned to me that we have like the heart of the system to be able to operate something, but do we really, is that heart in good condition? I guess is really what my question.
Oh, like as far as a high
Confirm.
service and.
Because whatever we add to it, I mean, is it worth spending $8 million on that heart?
Yes.
In other words, if we were to consider a microfiltration, is it worth spending $3 million for an RO system? You know, is it, in other words, whatever we invest in there, is it worth investing whatever monies we're gonna invest into that heart? Because, I mean, we're gonna have to improve the water quality, no doubt, but if it's being caused by an outdated system, then that's a problem.
Well, not necessarily, because the outdated system, that's the way it was at the other treatment plant. They converted the clarifiers, they kept using them, and the filtration system was outdated, really outdated. So that part of it, the heart that was there, they just added the microfiltration, and that's the costly part of it, the microfiltration.
But the lines.
But the rest of
lines
stuff-
to distribute that water are fine?
Yeah.
Should be fine,
Water
yes.
quality is,
Okay.
you know,
They have like 4,
okay for the most part, it's just, you know,
Okay.
because of the type of system.
And that's why I bring it up, because if we are gonna consider investing money there, we need to consider what's already in the ground and how old it is, and the pressure we're gonna put on it with a newer system over it.
Yeah, but with the size of with our 24-inch crossing along the old bridge alignment and the 16-inch on the causeway, I mean, that gives us, you know, a good conduit, I guess, to get the pressure we need out the island. If anything, we add booster pumps, but, you know, we should have any issues there.
Okay.
I just know what's coming. I appreciate your answer.
Cool. Moving on to the distribution department. the distribution department just has some equipment and some remaining payments from the mini excavator that we purchased during the current year. There's no other one-time expenditures there. If we look at the collections department, we reduced in the current year, we're purchasing the vacuum truck. And in the proposed budget year, we're going to invest about $15,000 to repair our backhoe. We had requested a new backhoe, but that's a very costly piece of equipment, and the budget committee recommended to try to repair the current backhoe. So we're estimating that those costs are going to be around $15,000.
Where does the vacuum truck come in here? Is this not,
So if you look at page 4 of your budget comparison, where you can see last year's the current year budget versus the proposed budget,
okay.
about halfway down the page, you see line item 7103.
Right.
In the first number you see there is a 356. That was the amount that was budgeted in the current year for the vacuum truck. And then in the proposed budget, you see that $15,000 figure. That's the repairs that we're
Can the
estimating.
equipment, the working part of our old vacuum truck that works, can that be taken off and put on a flatbed trailer or anything and used?
That's what was discussed at, right, that we can do it on the, a new chassis, which is the engine and the
I'm not
truck.
talking about a new truck, I'm just talking about the tank and the pump, the vacuum
Right,
pump
right,
itself.
right,
Can it be
correct. That's
taken up?
the vacuum.
Put on,
Regular trailer?
yeah.
Not a
You
regular.
just need a power source, right?
Everything to work, to get the engine in the front and make sure the back works.
The gentleman that rented the truck to the lady to the board, why didn't put a chance to put it on standard trade? That would be effective, that would refrigerate that system.
It has to be certified and by the certain certifiable mechanic. There's a lot of variables in there.
I would have to be PCU,
Blind.
rule for bus transport and whatnot, so any changes could affect that.
So what's gonna happen to the old equipment?
Well-
We're planning to stay with one on unit 38. And
Yeah, we're gonna keep the Sterling.
Yeah.
Hopefully the 21, we can trade it in, do something with it. 21 is one of the oldest ones we got.
15 plus years old.
But it's one that halfway works, right?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah.
Now on the cab, if you guys want us to buy on the tractor, you all want us to buy a used one? Or a new one? Because I don't think we've ever bought anything used.
Whichever,
But I
you can get
think
both.
that, I don't think 15,000 is gonna, I don't know what it costs, but my gut feeling is,
It's only
I
the
don't
cab, the
Yeah, it's
top
just the
part.
cab.
Right, so
um,
try to get prices
What-
on both. That's all we.
you said you had gotten
requested.
some information on one already. What are we looking at so far
About 10,000, 10,500
for a used one?
for a used one.
And that leaves
I
you,
just gotta go see it.
about $4,500
It's all
to,
rusted out like the one we got. Yeah, we had that at the same place. And now to replace that, I mean, there's a lot of things too, to just replace it, just not one cat, take out the wiring and out of everything else.
right.
Always is.
What you really need to look at on the backhoe is the hydraulic system, the piston system, not just the cab.
Right.
The cab is for the roll protection. Okay, that's pretty much what it does.
Right.
If you did roll over, it protects you. That's, as important as it is, compared to the hydraulic system, the piston system, your operations, your wiring, everything goes along with it. It's just like, in my opinion, putting a Band-Aid on the sword that is gonna still be
Well,
out.
we did talk about that at the last time it came up, and Mr. Bart assured us that there was nothing mechanically wrong with that tractor.
I'm not saying anything about the mechanical, the engine part, I'm talking about the hydraulic.
We talked about the pistons. We
Okay,
talked
I
about
mean-
all that, and you said it was adequate. You said it ran just fine. Okay, well, that's different than your, that's a different tone from last time.
It's working, but until when? I mean, how long is it gonna last us? Yeah, we had somebody say, yeah, it's 18 years old. Yeah, it's 18 years old. How long is it gonna last us? You know?
Much as you take
Well,
care
I
of
think-
it.
Until
yeah,
it breaks down
I-
next
Took
time.
care of it for 18 years. I
Right.
mean, how long more does it gonna last? We
Right.
can put a new cabin and if they are, our engine's gonna go out.
Well, what I can
this is-
see,
This is what we're looking at, Joe. Back truck, tractor.
okay, well, what I see is that, it'll last 1 year more. Because next year you can come back if it's broken, or non-usable, we can come back. We can come back next year.
This year we're gonna buy a vacuum.
Right.
The back was.
For 350, not to exceed 356.
Right.
Buy the Vector this year, rent the backhoe if you need another one.
Yeah, if we
and
need
go
one,
out
we'd have
this
to-
year.
yeah.
Rent one for the balance of the year and put it. in
Worst
the
case
budget for
scenario, I
next year.
guess.
Yeah,
That would be my
yeah,
suggestion.
that's what we're looking at.
We'll put a big bow on it and say Merry Christmas.
That would be my comment.
Okay. Alrighty, what else?
Hey, get 'em.
Huh?
Yeah, you get 'em. That's it. And it's target.
1 year.
Was my suggestion also.
Yeah, what did you decide over there?
It still hasn't been approved.
What am I adding to the budget?
Just as is, right there.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay.
Oh, I missed that on the distribution department, we're going to replace one truck and replace the bed on his dump truck.
Yeah, that looks really bad.
Yeah.
I did see that the other day.
I think the sooner we do that, if we close the budget, especially on that dump truck, the sooner we do it, the better. It's a real liability issue if we have rocks and drop off in the bed and, you know, hit a windshield, something happens. We try to minimize the usage of it if we have to.
Yeah, on the vehicles, our fleet manager evaluated all the vehicles. 9 came out in poor condition according to our fleet manager. But we can't replace all those, so we're only replacing the 3 that are in worse condition. So this budget,
They're all for,
he's one-
they're all for one department, or they're spread out?
No, one is for distribution, another one is for,
Electrical department,
one is for electrical
the other was the water treatment.
and water. Is it water?
What was it? The wastewater side. But they're different departments.
Okay.
And we'll see that when we come to the next department, so we'll let you know.
Wastewater and electrical. So it's distribution, wastewater, and
Wastewater,
electrical.
right.
Okay. 34, unit 34 is being replaced, so, okay. So moving on to Department 5, maintenance. In maintenance, all he wanted was a scanner to repair new vehicles, the newer vehicles. His current machinery doesn't read the new vehicles, so he estimates a scanner would be $3,099.
Yeah, I thought we were looking at about 1,500. Oh, okay. And that does cover the newer? Oh, okay.
So how much am I gonna change this? 1,500? Okay. Moving on to the lab. The lab just has, we're gonna remodel a utility closet into a restroom, and we're gonna do that work in-house, and we estimate that that's gonna cost us $711.
They're gonna hook it up next year.
Saying.
Well, all the labor's gonna be done in-house. All right, next to the wastewater. Oh, well, administration, we already talked about the major things, which were the unfunded pension payment. We talked about the transfer to the capital projects. There's going to be election costs on there.
Payment of the water, the revenue bonds.
Yes, the transfer out to the debt service payments. That includes the new, the proposed payments for the loans that we're applying for. So the bond for the meters and the other Texas Water Development Board loan for the
That's for
sewer
both of
system.
That's for both of the loans?
Yes, so that's what the addition, if you look at the bottom of that page, the difference between the 932 and the 1,622,000, that's 690. That's what that's the two additional debt service payments for those two projects. Moving on to the wastewater plant. The wastewater plant, so it's one additional wastewater operator, so one additional personnel and a vehicle. Fencing. Filter sand, so the fencing is around 11,000. The Andy Bowie bed filter sand is about 4,200. And that's about it. Those are the additional additions to this budget.
A couple things. On odor and grease control, you have the same amounts. Does this line item not reflect what we're trying to do? I thought we decided it was going to have to be an increase.
I have no idea where to, I'm not sure how much we would have.
Well, no, but I mean, it's going to be something.
Well, I think what Mark's trying to get is that there's three different companies that you all are measuring. Two other companies to test against each other, see which one works the best. Okay, so that's what I think that's what he meant, that he kept it the same because it'll take some time to collect all that.
Yeah, that.
But it should be, even though if you try another company or whatnot, or the other company is better, I think you should increase it anyhow, because you guys have been working at it quite a bit, and it's gonna take more. The more fun you have in there, the better results you get on any chemical or
It
any
needs to be
company.
increased. Give them an amount.
There you go.
How much? How much you think?
Well, I can tell you the history on that. Last year, we spent 58,000 in that line item. In the current year, we have 90,000 budgeted, and through June, we'd only spent 44,000. So we still have
About half the budget.
funding, yeah, in the current
So
year.
that's about,
And we still give you 30,000 in the budget from what we've done in the past.
Yeah, but for next year.
But if you feel.
So you did have 90 on that budget, but you haven't spent it all?
Right.
Okay.
That's right. So in the current year, we have budgeted 90, but we've only spent about half of that.
I think the only thing, or one thing I
June.
guess you could anticipate would be to actually build out a lift station, but I don't think that would be worst-case scenario for odor control measures, but I don't think there's really a need according to what that Chuck guy said.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at increasing chemical, which I know that chemical amount, it's like 20,000 higher this year for the coming year than what we did.
So
Yeah,
that's
those 10% price increase, but then we gave it.
that's what kind of a percentage is that based on what you're paying now? What are you paying now? But the $4 increase is based on what? Per barrel. So you're using 28 barrels? For how many? About 15 barrels? So,
Yeah, that's just the WorkShop, we have, on Microsoft, we have WorkShop. That's, we change them out every, those are 2 sites. We change them out every 3 months.
is that comparable in pricing?
The same.
So realistically, it may be a 10% increase, is all you're really looking at. Over to the budget, that is,
Mm-hmm.
if you wanted to pick a number.
So if you guys wanted to increase it, you want to increase it 10,000, right? Is that what we're looking at?
I'm going with that.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got a pretty good decrease in your cost of electricity.
Yes. So the electricity, the new rate is gonna drop because of the addition that we made. We extended the agreement at a lower rate, and that's isn't gonna take effect until January, I think. And so I anticipate that the cost for electricity is gonna go down.
So that's pretty well reflected through all the departments.
Correct. Yes.
Your overtime is pretty low on some of these, is that? I mean, that's good.
Yes, I got together with the managers and
Those realistic
showed them what they've spent in overtime over the past few years, and then I asked them, how much do you think you'll need for next year? And they gave me the numbers.
Well, that's how many people we have on staff, I have like 1 person on staff.
And in his department, if we're going to add an additional position, that should also help him control overtime.
Well, there's usually a lot of overtime, but just the call-outs. So the weekends, they go call-out then.
So in my department, what the biggest addition on here is repairs to the customer service, the drive-through, where the customers drive through to give payments, and the canopy over the entrance, the walk-in entrance. Both of those, the roof tiles are falling off. And it's been happening periodically. They're metal tiles that are meant to look like the ceramic Spanish tiles, but they're all rusted out, and so they're randomly falling, and they could hit a customer or hit a customer vehicle as they're driving through. So right now we're already missing about between 6 and 12 on each side of the roof. areas right there. So that needs to be replaced. So we're estimating about $6,000 to do that work. And the other 1,200 is for a refrigerator for the employee break room. In the next department, electrical, we're projecting one additional electrical position and a new vehicle.
How many people are in that department right now?
Three. So here's Jim. So have three currently, and we want to add one additional person.
Yeah, I believe on that one that we had a crew of 4 employees a while back, 5 actually, and we never hired the other 2. So we've had 3 for a while, and now we see the need, because there's a call at the water plant, and then they get a call for the sewer plant, so they have to run back and forth. Because at least they have 2 crews, including the manager. So,
For AC repairs?
Yeah.
oh, that's what's gonna be requested on the next job description, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Moving on to the construction department. The construction department, the only additions are equipment. So they're asking for several different types of equipment. A diaphragm pump, a plasma machine, a gas-powered air compressor, and a welding machine.
I made mention at one of our odor control meetings, I would like to see those lines that cross over the channel here in town.
Pipelines,
Yes.
water lines, yes. We discussed it. I know that Joel had done it a few years
Lines that
back,
go over the
but
little channel, those
Water
3 big
lines?
pipes that go over the channel in Port Isabel, they're all rusted up.
Let's give them a
There's
good
2
coating.
water lines, and I think there's 1 sewer, I mean, they need to be,
touch up, yeah.
no, scraped and painted. I mean, just, it doesn't look good.
That needs to be re-anchored as well.
Whatever it needs, just do it, because it's
Looking
it's
bad.
something everybody sees every day.
That's true. When was the last time you did the work there? Like 3, 4?
4 or 5 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, we just gotta be real careful because of the, where it's at. We gotta put a canopy underneath so we catch the paint, and then we're chipping and stuff like that. We can only have a certain percentage fall into the.
Yeah, but it has to get done again, so
Do it at
we'll take care of it.
That's the way I do it.
Paint the fish below.
It'll get done. That's,
So that covers the general fund. Any questions?
Additional.
Anyone have any other questions, comments? Now's the time to add anything, missing anything? Feel like you're missing something in the budget?
Joey,
He wants that tractor.
Joey.
No one walks away going, well, I didn't get what I wanted.
I have just a general comment as far as the whole budget is concerned. One of the things that did get my attention was the amount of money we spend on travel and training. I think at a minimum, I think we should consider at least waiting until some of these conferences and whatnot are here in the state and try to limit some of that. We're spending over $100,000 in travel and training. And I know that some of it is compliance related. I'm not talking necessarily about that, but it's just something, it'd be nice to, bring that figure down a little bit.
We will consider that, going to state conferences or whatnot, instead of going out. So, well, we'll consider that. Even, if we go out of the state, I think the board has the authorization to approve those travels.
Yeah.
And I think this year we went one time out of the state,
Yeah, I think there's some
But it was
some
a-
conference
several
that happens, that does happen out of state.
but it does take board approval to do that, so we'll be cautious on it.
Okay.
And I think Eddie added the employee count by department, so.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I had requested that information, is to figure out, approximately how many people are we going and what are we spending,
Yeah.
to do that. And the number just got my attention. I didn't think it would be that high. I know that one of the ways that we handled it over at the city was we would each get a budget. For instance, our board would get a budget, and anytime you exceeded that budget, you just come back with a request for more money and get the board to give you more money. That was one way we controlled that. And of course, the chairman got the most money.
Good.
That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
In closing, what else have we got?
We could, I don't know if you guys want, I would prefer to wait to talk about capital projects until after, Charles and I have come to an agreement as far as what we think we can do.
Yeah, we can go with our fund balance.
What our fund balance is, yeah, that's the thing.
That's a separate topic.
Yeah,
My opinion.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's
So
totally
I agree.
something that's already been approved and whatnot, but they just need to put the numbers
What's
together.
our approximate fund balance?
In the general fund? I don't have that number
I
with
think
me.
it's very close to
I
zero.
didn't bring that.
No, it's like
No? Our
maybe
fund
seven.
balance in the general fund?
7.5 or no?
You just gave me that number yesterday, but I don't remember and I didn't bring it with me. 7.5 million
Well, that was our beginning balance for this year,
For-
right?
Yeah,
in capital project?
yeah, but you have a lot of restricted.
But in the
funds
general
in there.
fund?
Yeah, it might be around 5.
No.
It's about 5.7.
Yeah, I don't remember, to be honest with you. I'll come back, tomorrow at the meeting, I'll give you a number.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, they are requesting a bigger boardroom. We'll think about it. Okay.
With a kitchen.
Yeah. Another building is what we need.
Well,
No,
I
want-
appreciate
Like this.
No, I just want to say thank you to the staff, to our finance director for putting this together, being new to all this, and I'm new to it as well, but thank you guys for the work that you do in trying to keep those numbers, in line, and we appreciate it, we really do. I know sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but we do. And all of us, try to cut back, I've cut back as much as I could. I'm going to do this for free, okay? So, but we do appreciate it. And just on a side note, I had talked to Scott about, I was somewhat concerned about the timing, of course, of the budget this year, but I understand, there's some things that came up and whatnot. And in my discussion with our chairman, I do agree with the chairman that, as long as the work is done in a timely manner, it doesn't matter when anybody takes off. you know, that's the fact of the matter. But just take into consideration everybody else's responsibility, not just your own. And so, and how that meshes and how that comes to be the final product, which is what we have here. So thank you for all your cooperation in putting this together.
I echo your thoughts, and I also think you have really brought a lot and done a lot. I mean, you walked right into all of this,
Yeah.
brand new out of the box. Well, I mean, not to this water district, but I mean,
Thank
and it's different, it's quite challenging, but, I mean, this is a very, very conservative budget. At the end of the day, we have to get more revenue, which just trickles straight down. And it's all about revenue, is the whole thing. And trying to make do with what we got, and more revenue allows us to do more things.
Yes.
I mean,
So-
that's the whole, there's only so much you can spend and so much you can take in.
Yeah, I would love to be pleasantly surprised and have our revenues exceed my projections and have something available for you guys to do another project, you know.
These budgets are adjusted quarterly, basically. I mean, and they're moving targets. You know, it may change based if there is a drought and 15% less revenue comes in.
Yes.
And that might be something, you know, to, you know, if you feel that things are trending differently, bring it to the board's attention, you know, say something, yeah.
Absolutely.
The
Better know
majority
that.
of the department heads, they know what they're working with and how to make that work.
And again, our goal is emphasized all the time to cut as much as you can and make sure we get the best prices and, you know, save some money everywhere we can. That's our main goal.
Guess we adjourn our meetings, is
Yep.
that fair?
Yes. So do you want to have another workshop to talk about capital projects, or what's the direction you want to go with that?
I have no problem. That is more of a workshop than it is a, something like this. I don't know if you want to do a couple weeks or what the urgency is or where we're going.
Yeah, let's plan on, before the next meeting, the
About an
22nd.
hour probably to discuss it, so I would recommend
Yeah.
maybe an hour before a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
When do we want to do this?
We'll do that.
On the 22nd?
We'll plan on